Is it recording?
Yeah.
Very
Now,
nice.
look, Rabbi, what time did you come last night?
Okay, I came home. You know what?
Wow.
Three something.
Wow. I was thinking about you. I said, I'll see you on Tuesday. Not today.
Yeah, three something was. I think it was very. What happened was someone misplaced the key to the car. Also,
Oh, my God.
so besides have to clean up the room, where the family stays, the room gets all whatever, and you got to put everything away, all the stuff and everything. Besides the cleanup, and you can't find the key. One of the members of the family had brought the key, had the key. They called up at maybe at 1:40. They called up to say that they have the key.
Did you wait for it?
So so we worked it out. I mean, really, we were going to leave that car there and take a different car.
I would say that would be the move.
We were going to be juggling, but it's all for the best. That's the bottom line. Yeah, we're on Mem Beis Zaman Aleph. Morris, I might need your help over here because this virus thing expired, and the scripture here. Take a look at. Okay, we're Mem Beis Zaman Aleph. Here we go. Okay, he does it. Mem Beis 42a. Let's look at the Mishnah towards the bottom. We started yesterday the Mishnah on 42a. Right? Let's go look at the Mishnah again. The bottom of the page. Everyone got it? Birach alayayin shelifnei hamozon. Mr. Haber, you have it? 42a.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Morning, Mike. How's everybody doing?
Baruch Hashem. Good morning, Mazal Tov. I'm sorry I couldn't be there.
Yeah, thank you. We missed. It was a big trip.
That's right, Rabbi. It was about 2.5 hours to get there for me.
Yes, hopefully Mashiach will come soon, and we'll all share smachot. Will be a little closer by.
Amen. Thank you.
We'll be living in the hopefully in the area. I mean, Israel's also a big place, but hopefully we'll be living near each other in Israel. Okay.
Amen. Thank you.
Let's see the Mishnah on the bottom of 42a. Berach alayayin shelifnei hamozon. Like we said yesterday, if you made a bracha on the wine before the meal, that means you would drink wine. Morning, Yosef Atzadik. You would drink
Rabbi.
wine. Morning.
Rabbi.
Yes.
So, because there is not many people yet on the phone, first of all, Mazal Tov.
Thank you.
And how was the wedding?
Baruch Hashem, very nice. A lot of nice dancing. Thank God. Lebedik,
You look not too tired.
I'm on a different type of, So when you're on overdrive, whatever it's called. You know what I mean?
Not too much alcohol. That's what it is.
Exactly. I don't drink much alcohol. We had some wine. We had some wine at the head table. Anybody wanted to make a burp? And it, like we learned yesterday, even though you washed on the bread, you made a geffen on the wine. That's what happened last night. Okay.
Nice.
We put into action what we learned here in this year. Okay. Thank you very much, Yosef, for asking. Berach alayayin shelifnei hamozon. If you said a blessing on the wine before you started the meal, before you had bread, potas hayayin shelach hamozon. That wine, the bracha on the wine before you had the bread, will cover the wine after the main course. Okay? If you had wine before you had bread, and the Gemara will explain what's the chidush. Why would you think otherwise? We have to wait to see what's the necessity for the Mishnah to tell us this law that 1 cup of wine before you have bread will cover the wine after the main course. Why would you think otherwise? You had a bar geffen, you had a mind to have wine after the main course. So why do you need why do you need the Mishnah to tell me that this wine covers that wine? The Mishnah does not say how much you have to drink. Technically, any amount you drink, because the key here is the bracha. The key is whether this bracha on the wine would cover the other wine. Mr. Haber is touching on an important point. Remember, we saw there is a discussion when we say that wine covers other beverages. If I say a geffen on wine, then I want to have, and I plan to have soda and I want water, I'm covered. We saw that there is a discussion, how much wine do I need to drink to cover the other beverages? Some of the opinion I should have, a nice amount, a large amount of wine. But we saw the Yalkut Yosef from Rav Yitzchak Yosef that even any amount of the wine would technically cover the water, the soda. You don't need to have a large amount of wine. Some say you should have and also to make a bracha on wine, any amount of wine, you say a bracha geffen on any amount of wine. So therefore, that technically, if you said the bracha geffen, even though you had a small amount of wine, according to the Yalkut Yosef, you covered. You will not need to say a bracha on the water. Others say no. You have to at least drink a cheeks full of wine to cover the water. You're in a gray area if you only have a small amount. Others say you have to drink a couple of, large amount of wine, larger than just a cheekful. There's different opinions how much wine. Yes, havdalah. Yes. Right. No, if you have a cheekful of a cheekful might be an ounce and a half, might be an ounce. There's different opinions. So if you have an ounce, in order to say hagefen, al hagefen, the bracha achrona that we say after you have wine, you have to have 3 ounces, around 3 ounces of. Otherwise, you will not say bracha achrona.
Would that then suggest that you say no?
You would say no bracha achrona, but
then that wine would cover.
But since you had a cheeks full, it would cover any water that I planned on drinking. If I had water or soda, and according to the Yalkut Yosef, even less than a cheeks full would cover the water and the soda. Right. That's what will come out. But you should try not to go into that gray area of just having a cheeks full of wine for Havdalah, because there are those that say that bracha achrona on wine would even be a cheeks full. You would also have to say bracha achrona on wine. There are those that say a kazayit, 1 ounce of wine, which are about the similar amount, and therefore better to have 3 ounces of wine for Havdalah, and therefore you will go ahead and then you will be required to say the bracha achrona on the wine.
So you're better off saying an adequate amount.
If you're drinking an adequate amount, that would require the bracha in order not to get into that gray area. Because between 1 ounce of liquid and 3 ounces of liquid, if you drink 1 to 3 ounces, if you're in that window, you're in a gray area, because the Shulchan Aruch says there are 2 opinions when you drink liquid. How much do you need to drink in order to require a bracha achrona? Do you have to drink a kazayit, 1 ounce, or a revi'it, 3 ounces? So because it's a question, so we say safek bracha lahakel. So if you drink between 1 and 3, you will not say a bracha achrona. But the ideal thing is avoid that situation. Do past 3 or more, and then you'll go ahead and you'll have responsibility to say the bracha achrona. That would be the.
But the case that we're discussing here is that if he has
any amount of wine, right? We don't. He'll cover any amount of wine, he'll cover the wine that he has that he wants to say that he wants to drink after. Right. Right. Because remember, you have to say a bracha on any amount. So I made a bracha on this amount. So any amount of wine should cover the other wine. See, the question is whether the bracha on the wine, any amount of wine, would cover other drinks, because the idea is wine is the king of drinks, right? Since it's the king of the drinks, it covers other drinks. And now the question is, but how much do I need to drink of the king of the drinks to cover other drinks? Do I have to have a certain amount or not? But if I'm covering its own drink, logic would say, for sure, I don't need to have so much to cover my own kind. If you want to say that I should cover something else and everything else is secondary to me, maybe I need to have a certain significant amount of myself in order for everything else to cover me. That's a matter of question in the halacha. Yes, there is a time frame. That's a very good point. There is a time frame that for sure the ideal time frame is a short amount of time, the normal time that a person drinks, not to have time in between, not to drink it over slowly. Drink it, not to sip it, right? Okay, so the Mishnah continues. Beirach ala paperet. If a person said a bracha on the paperet. The paperet, we said, is like some sort of appetizer. If you said a bracha on the appetizer, shelifnei hamazon, if you said a bracha on this appetizer before you had the bread even, you said a bracha on this type of appetizer. So pata es a paperet shelach hamazon. This food, this will also exempt the paperet that comes after the main course. After the main course, they would bring in some sort of sweet type of food. And some say this food had, let's say, was dough together with other things, spices and other things. And the fact that you said a bracha on the paperet, the appetizer that came before the meal, will also cover the appetizer that similar, not an appetizer, some other form of food that's coming for, let's say, a dessert type of food. And if you said the bracha on the paperis before the meal, the same way if you say the bracha on the wine that comes before you have bread, it will cover the wine after the main course. Similarly, the bracha on the appetizer that you had, if they brought out before you had the bread, if they brought out some food before you had the bread, and you said a bracha on that food, and that food's purpose was to serve as an appetizer, to open up the appetite, that would cover the similar type of food that will come after the main course, which is not a food as a meal food. It's coming for some sweet purpose. And this bracha, let's say I said this bracha on the paperet that I had, the appetizer would cover that other food also that I'm having after the main course. Even though that other, what do you say? First, and then I had the bread. Then after the main course, they brought out some sort of sweet type of food, like some type of dessert. And the food is the same type of bracha that the appetizer had. Let's say it was a shakol, or was adama, or was mizonot. So now the question is, does the bracha that I said before the bread on that appetizer, which has the same bracha on the food that I'm bringing after the main course, would this bracha cover that bracha? So let's say I start off with mizonot. Let's say I had an appetizer, and the way Rashi says, let's say it's like a fish. I opened up, let's say, a fish market. I had fish with a shakol, and then I had bread. Then I said hamotzi on the bread. Then I had chicken and I had potatoes. Then I finished. Then after that was finished, I didn't say birkat hamazon. And now they bring me out. Right, but it might not be fish, but it's some other type of I'm gonna call it ice cream or some sort of sweet type of food that I'm having then, which the bracha would also be a shakol. If I would not have made a shakol before the meal, I would have to make a shakol on that because it's not coming as part of the meal. And now the Mishna is teaching us, but since I already said the bracha shakol before the bread, earlier before the meal, need to say a new bracha, a new shakol on this thing that's coming out as dessert. So we say the bracha on the appetizer. You said a shakol in the beginning, that will cover. That's what the Mishnah teaches us. Okay, that's what the Mishnah is teaching us. I said hamotzi, but hamotzi will not, if I would not have said a bracha on the food before the bread, right? The case was, then I would have to say a bracha on this thing that's coming after the main course, because it's not coming as meal food. It's not coming as, like we said, Anything that's part of the meal, the bread covers anything that you have during the meal. This new food that's being brought in is not as coming as part of the meal. It's not a meal food. It's not a food as a filler. It's more of a food that's coming as something that's sweet. If you'll see, even if you could take a look at the art scroll, we'll see how he'll explain it. He says the peripheral dish that is eaten after the meal. So what does he say that is? Presumably, this refers to dessert food that carries the dessert. You see, look at note number 32, Mr. Haber. What is this food? Everyone can look at note number 32 on the art scroll. Look, presumably, you see it? This refers to the dessert food that carries the same blessing as the peripheral dish that was eaten before the meal. That means this is dessert food. We say a bracha on dessert. It would require generally its own bracha, but since I said a bracha on the fish that came before the meal, so therefore it would cover this. You see what it says, last line of the page, Mr. Haber. This dessert would require a separate prior breast. You see that? When eaten, you can turn it when eaten before Berachos Hamazon. Were it not that the blessing obligation was already discharged with the one recited on the because you said the bracha on the dish that came before the bread. Okay, you see it's clear, black and white, right? We have oral Torah, and we also have oral Torah when you read it inside. But so that's everybody got the case clear. It's a little complicated. We got the case clear. I had some food, Mike. You listening? Yosef Tzaddik, Shmuel Rave is on. They're all on the screen. I opened up. I came to the house and they served me some fish. They didn't serve me any bread yet. So on the fish, I say a shakol. But I know when I said that shakol, I know and I have a mind I'm going to have some sort of dessert that's also a shakol. Anything else, anything that's a shakol. Anything that not particularly a shakol, anything that will match the bracha of dessert. Same thing, adama, it's the same thing. It's the point is I'm saying a bracha before the bread. Good morning, Avram and Shmuel. I'm saying a bracha before the bread. I'm saying adama on some sort of vegetable that's coming out, but I know I'm having a dessert that's also adama. And generally, a dessert, I say a bracha on a dessert because it's not covered by the bread. But now I said a bracha on the thing that came before the bread. There was another item that I ate before I started bread. I had a different item that carries the same bracha as the dessert. Could the bracha be all the way before the bread, cover all the way up to the dessert? So the Mishna says, yes, it could cover. The same way the wine before the bread covers the wine after the main course. The bracha on the food that I had before the bread, the solid food that I had before the bread, would cover the solid dessert that I have after the main course. So then I have to make a separate bracha because remember, we're talking about there's a dessert coming to the table. We're saying the dessert needs a bracha. It's not covered by the bread. It's not a meal food. The dessert is not a part of the things that you could identify as meal food that you eat during the meal as part of the meal. The bread covers that. Your fish, your chicken, your salad, your potatoes, the bread covers it. But when you bring out dessert, and dessert is not something that's part of the meal, it's independent of it's not eaten as a food to fill you up. You're required to say a bracha on that. Bori Pri Eitz, you have that apple, you have pineapple, you have to say adama, bananas, adama. It's not part of the meal. But you know what happened? But I had something before that. I had bread. I said a bracha on something before I had the bread. And I knew I was going to have this. I knew the menu. They showed me the menu before. I'm familiar with the menu. Sometimes you go to weddings, they give you a printed menu. You know what's coming first, what's coming second. You know what's on the menu. So now the Mishnah teaches us I could mix, so to speak, that what I said before the actual washing on the bread, the bracha on the food that I had before the bread, would cover all the way to after the main course for that dessert. That's the case of the Mishnah. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Maybe it's not a question. I think I'm from the East. People from the Middle East or Africa. Sometimes the snack is almost part of the food. Is that because I'm assuming that the
Snack is almost, it's always what?
in some cases it's part of the meal.
Okay, so I think
It's just different, but it's just part of the meal.
you see, you have to know if the way the halacha seems to indicate it, if it's not eaten as a meal food to really fill you up, it's just, I mean, let's say for instance, they go ahead and they bring out a candy during the meal. Are you going to tell, you have to make, the candy is not part of the meal. You should require to say a bracha on the candy during even though they brought it, there is such a thing, foods that are not really coming as to serve as a food, as a meal, it's not, you would have to make a bracha on that. You have to make a bracha on a candy. Let's say they go in and they bring me a lollipop during the meal. I would say you have to make a shahakol on the lollipop. Right.
And then they pass about a piece of chocolate. Take the chocolate. Is that now a bit of how required?
The way see, I'll tell you like this. See, chocolate is a different. Chocolate, Mr. Haber. I think that chocolate, because it melts in your mouth. Some say that chocolate you could consider like a drink. But I would like to say, make a difference in chocolate. That's what some say. But therefore, you would not require to say a bracha on it, even if the chocolate would come as a dessert. But a candy, which is a solid, I'm talking about a candy, these solid candies, sucking candies that people put in their mouths, right? I would think it, yes, because it's nothing to do with the meal. It's nothing to do with the bread. It's not connected to the bread at all. It's not connected. It's not part of the meal. I would definitely say you would need a bracha on it. You could talk to your brother. I'll give you homework, Mr. Haber. See what he says. If they bring a sucking candy during the meal, what would you say a bracha on the sucking candy? We had in the Gemara before the things that are not part of the meal. If they come during the meal, they would require a bracha. They give a generalization of foods that are not meal foods. That seems to be the generalization. If it's not a food that's coming as part of the meal, it's not a salad, it's not anything you eat as part of a meal. It's something that's totally an after something that you generally would eat after the meal. Something you generally would eat after the meal, unless you say that it's common to have candies during the meal. That this is a normal meal, part of the meal of some sort. I don't.
Fruit.
Right, so that's what we got into the issue of fruit. If you have fruit in the beginning of the meal, so then you get it. That's a gray area. The fruit, everyone knows if you have fruit after the main course, you say a bracha. So now the question is, what's with fruit in the beginning of the meal? So there I wanted to say that fruit, it's a gray area. Some say you should say a bracha on it. Others say maybe you will not need to say because it's coming in the beginning of the meal. And I would say the logic would be is because you have hamotzi, and then you're eating the fruit. So you like eating the fruit together with the bread. So if you eat the fruit together with bread, then you will not need a bracha on the fruit. So when it comes in the beginning of the meal, we might be able to look at the fruit that's coming in the beginning of the meal as connected to the bread. You see, they don't put the fruit at the main course. Usually, they don't put a piece of fruit in the main course. When you main course, you might not having any bread. Usually, it's the fruit. You start off with the fruit right after the bread. Like I said, many weddings open up with a fruit, with a cantaloupe, a honeydew right after. So therefore, there's room to say that's connected to the bread, and therefore you will not need to say a bracha on that. So when I saw that, I was told, I once asked about the fruit years ago. So somebody says, just eat it with some challah. Just eat it with, you go to a lot of Ashkenazic weddings, they open up with a fruit after they have their challah. So they said, just eat it with some challah. So you're connecting it to the challah to avoid the question. That will deal with your fruit question in the beginning of the middle. What do you say?
Nuts. Any kind of nuts.
Nuts, right. Nuts are not meal food. Nut is generally, you go ahead and they have walnuts, cashew nuts. That's a dessert type of food. So if you're going to go in, and even if you take a dessert food and you bring it during the meal, but that's not a meal food. You require a bracha, unless you're eating the nuts with the bread. That's what it would seem to me. Right. That's what it would seem like. Correct.
When we have salad, let should not as you know.
But if you put if the nuts are mixed in the salad, then they become part of the salad. Then it's not. That's not when we say there's a requirement of the bracha on the nuts independent. So the nuts are eaten by themselves. They're not eaten as part of a salad or something like that. Okay. So now the Mishnah continues. Yes, yes, fruit in a salad is eaten as more as part of the meal food. That's not a dessert food. Fruit in a salad is part of the meal. It's eaten as it's a normal thing. It's a meal food. It's to fill you up. It's not a sweetened, it's not eaten as a sweet. But in general, if let's say you don't have bread, let's say you're having a salad and it has hadamah, it has an eitz in the salad. So a lot of times you would say, they're mixed together. So one way we would say is, what's the majority of the salad? You know what I'm saying? If the majority is hadamah, so then the small little pieces of fruit would be tafel, would be secondary to the majority. If its majority is and you're eating it mainly for the purpose of the hadamah, and you have they throw a few little pieces of the fruit inside, it's eaten together, you go after the majority in such a case. Okay. Now the Mishnah continues. Beirach alapat, four lines from the bottom of the page. Beirach alapat patas apaperet. So the Mishnah says if you made a bracha on the bread, it will exempt the paperet. What does that mean? Because the way we explain, let's say the paperet has mezonot, has a little bit of dough. It's like a dough, a cake, a doughy, an apple pie or something. Let's say an apple pie. So the way it sounds like from the Mishnah, that if I have this dessert by itself, let's say the Mishnah is saying if I made a bracha on the bread would exempt this dessert, because since dessert is mezonot, right? I would really need to say a mezonot on this item, but since I'm having it after I had bread, meaning I had bread, and then after I finished my meal, I had this paperet, which has dough in it. So berich alapat pataras paperet, it will go ahead and exempt this. I will not need to say a mezonot on this dessert, because I had bread, and even though this is let's see how they translate this for a second. Beirich alapat potas apaperet. So is there Rashi on this? So 1 second. The commentary. Hold on 1 second. Nun ches. So the way they want to explain, our Mishnah is talking about this type of paperet that you had in front of you when you said the bracha on the bread. So you had this paperet, and you said again, you said hamotzi on the bread, and the motzi on the bread will go ahead and cover this paperet, this cake. This, if you want to, let's see how if they're going to translate it this way as well. Yeah, so they're translating, right? You ate it, right? So that's the way we're saying it. If you had mezonot for dessert and you had the hamotzi should cover the mezonot. That's what this is saying. To cover the fruit. Berachos potas paperet ala paperet. But if you said the mezonot on the paperet, let's say you had this cake before the meal, and now that you had bread, I have to make a bracha on the bread hamotzi, even though they're both from the grain family. This is mezonot. This had flour. I'm making a bracha on flour right now. I'm making mezonot on this cake, and then I'm going ahead and I'm having bread. So the Mishnah teaches a chidush, even though they both contain the wheat ingredients, because this is wheat and this is wheat. The only difference is this is cake, and I'm making mezonot on a cake. If I have cake by itself, I say mezonot. I have bread by itself, I say hamotzi. But now I'm having cake followed by bread. So now let's say we're calling it like cake. So would we say that since I'm going to be anyways eating a dough type of food, so would the mezonot cover the hamotzi? So that's what the Mishnah says. No, it does not. Berach ala paperet. Look, but mezonot doesn't cover. Meaning, of course not. The opposite covers. And hamotzi covers mezonot, but that's what the Mishnah teaches us. And the chidush is, some explain that even though they're both from the grains, they both nourish you, they both fill you up. But bread has to cover, and the mezonot will not cover the bread.
Just want to say my group to Rabbi Friedman last night. It was his son's wedding.
Yes, thank you very much, Sammy. Thank you very much, Sammy. Yeah, they know. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Sammy. Looking to your simcha. I want to dance at your wedding soon too. Yes. So now, Berach alampat potas apaperet. Alapaperet lo potas apapat. Saying the bracha on the mezonot will not cover the bread. Beishamai omrim af lo masa kedera. Beishamai says it will not cover a food that's cooked, a mezonot that's cooked. What does that mean? So the Gemara will explain what is Beishamai. We'll have to stay tuned for the Gemara. What does Beishamai mean? That it doesn't cover a cooked food. Does he mean that the mezonot on a baked item, on a cake, does not cover mezonot on pasta? And therefore it would require, because one is baked and one is cooked, therefore it would require a separate bracha on the cooked item? Or does he mean something else? Stay tuned for the Gemara. Okay, I want to wish everyone a great day, and we'll continue tomorrow. It's a little complicated, the Gemara with the paperet, but we'll hang in there, and we'll try to get a more clear understanding. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks.
Rabbi,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is Sammy still there?
No, Sammy left. Thank
Okay,
you very
next
much,
time you
Mark.
see him, give him a blessing for a wedding.
Yes. Call him up, Yosef. Give him a bracha.
You know, you're the father of the king, so, you know.
Okay, you're right. I should yes. Everybody should be blessed. Everybody should be blessed with all the brachot. My father-in-law, Rabbi London of blessed memory, he would say, you should be blessed with all the blessings of the Torah. Which encompasses
Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen ve'baruch.
Take care, everybody.
Take
Yosef,
care,
give
Rabbi.
me a blessing, Yosef. I want to hear a blessing from a holy man, Yosef. Give us all a blessing, Yosef, at Tzaddik.
Be'ezrat Hashem. Be'ezrat Hashem.
I didn't hear the bracha yet. Be'ezrat Hashem is not enough of a bracha.
Rabbi, I heard somewhere, you know, yesterday that, you know, when the tribes, you know, went, you know, for the Meraglim, so one of the tribes, or the two tribes of Bnei Yosef, so only one mentioned Menashe, the Shevet Yosef Menashe, or Menashe ben Yosef, and this other tribe of Yosef, he didn't mention Yosef. Why is that?
I have to look at it. I think the reason is because Hoshua, look, I'm going to read you the pasuk. Here's the pasuk. Remember, Yosef, one of Yosef, he had Ephraim and Menashe. But the problem
Yes.
here is that Menashe, the head of the tribe of Menashe, did not do the right job. He did the wrong thing. Yehoshua was from Ephraim, right? So therefore, let's look at the language of the pasuk. Lemata Yosef, lemata Menashe, Gamliel ben Susi, and let's see, Rash. It says lemata Ephraim, Hoshea ben Nun. So now Rashi, let's see if Rashi makes a comment. Yeah, there is a comment. What would be see, number one, we want to separate Ephraim, meaning because one is going to do the right thing, one is going to do the wrong thing, so we're not putting them together. So there's one idea, we're not putting both children of Yosef together because they both did not act the same way. One acted properly, one acted inappropriately. So therefore, I mean, that's part of why it's split separately. The Mata Yosef, but your question is, so why, so therefore it says the Mata Yosef, the Mata Menashe, and yet it does not say the Mata Ephraim. Ephraim is not connected with, why isn't it called?
Yes, exactly. That's my question.
Okay, only here. So they say, it says only Menashe, not Ephraim, because the representatives of Menashe was similar to Yosef. Yosef, you see here, they say the shot like this. Yosef said something not nice about his brothers, right? Yosef said he saw things that his brother did wrong, and he reported it to his father. So therefore, it connects Menashe to Yosef that he had this weakness that's similar that Yosef had. So therefore, it says Lamata Yosef, Lamata Menashe, that Menashe had a weakness that Yosef had. Yosef was a tzaddik, and Yosef meant well when he reported on his brothers to his father, but at the end of the day, he reported on his brothers. And even though he meant well, so Menashe, his descendant of Menashe from this tribe, followed the ways of Yosef of reporting things that were not positive. Even though Yosef meant well, they didn't mean well. So, but he followed in Yosef's path in reporting a negative report. That's why he's connected to Yosef.
But also, if you remember, Yosef was reporting to Yaakov about his brother.
Right, but what did he report? A negative report. It was a negative report. And same thing, Menashe gave a negative report about the land of Israel. And therefore, the Torah connects Menashe to Yosef. However, Yoshua, who came from Ephraim, who gave a positive report, so we don't connect him to Yosef, because Yosef was the one who made a negative report. So we're emphasizing Yosef by the one who gives the negative report. You should know, it's interesting. It says Vatetse Leah it says, sorry, Vatetse Dina bat Leah. Dina, the daughter of Leah, went out to see the girls of the land. And then Shechem found her and Shechem violated her. So she's identified as Dinah, the daughter of Leah. So Rashi says, why is she called Dinah, the daughter of Leah? She's also the daughter of Yaakov. So Rashi says, because she followed her mother's way. Her mother was an outgoing woman. And this daughter, usually like mother, like daughter, like father, like son, she also was outgoing. The problem is the mother was outgoing, and it was very safe the way the mother was outgoing. Sometimes you can be an outgoing woman if you do it in a very safe way within the community, among the women, and certain places you're an outgoing woman. like Leah went out to greet Yaakov. She went out to greet her husband. That's beautiful. She was outgoing in a very positive way to greet her husband. But Dinah made the mistake that she was outgoing. She went out to see the girls of the land. She had good reasons, but it was not safe. It wasn't safe because she was vulnerable that a man could see her, and she was in a place that the people laid their eyes on her and took her. You have to be safe when you're outgoing. So, but the Torah identifies her with her mother. We never found anything against her mother, but she's just following the ways of her mother by being this outgoing type of person. So that's it. So sometimes the Torah connects the children when they emulate, when they follow the ways of their ancestor. And therefore, Dinah followed the way of her mother, and therefore, and the same thing, this Menashe followed the way of Yosef on reporting something in a negative way. So that's why it's connected. And that's why Dinah is connected to her mother in the fact that she was an outgoing woman. So I once said the following idea. Every person, you have to look at yourself, Yosef, and everyone on the screen. Look at what type of person you are. What type of character are you? An outgoing, non-outgoing? Are you a very very communicative type of person that you talk a lot? You don't talk a lot. You have to look at yourself, what type of person you are, and you have to remember your children are going to be very similar to you. And your question is, how are they going to take that midah that you have, and they're going to act similarly. But the question is, are they going to take it to a better place, or they're going to use it for a great thing? Let's say you find kids, their fathers are brilliant, right? The kid is also brilliant, but the father is brilliant and he uses his brilliance for great things. And then the kid is brilliant and he uses it for who knows what. He's using with the mind. He's destroying. He's being very destructive. So then you have a person who talks a lot, like we had the story of the mother and the son, that the mother, Shlomit Bat Divri, she was a very outgoing woman. She kept on talking, and she ran her mouth like a faucet. And what happened with her son? Her son went and did the sin of blasphemy, cursed God. And he sinned with his mouth. And I wanted to say, why did he sin with his mouth? Because he grew up in a home that the mother showed no holiness for the mouth. The words were like a faucet. She kept on talking. She was like a bird. She was a bat divri. She chirped she talked like a bird. So if a mother shows no holiness for the mouth, what does the child do with it? The child can lead to the sin of blasphemy with his mouth, to curse God. That's how far you could go, because you pick up, if they see in the parents great midot, they see you. Let's say they see their father is charitable, kind, they're going to be charitable and they'll be kind. And they could take it to who knows what type of levels. But the problem is that children pick up in the parents' weaknesses. Not only do they pick up in their parents the malot of the parents, the great things that the parents have, the positive character traits of the parents, but they also see the negatives of the parents. If a parent gets angry, the children most likely will get angry. And we know if parents have a problem with hitting, the children, many times when they grow older and they become adults, they hit also. I mean to say, if they're abusive, I'm not referring to giving a smack. That's not what I'm referring to. Being abusive. If parents are abusive, there are statistics that will say that the children will be abusive too. Not necessarily they will be, but they're much more at risk to be abusive. So children pick up everything, and you don't know what level they'll take it to. So therefore, it's a great responsibility on the parents to perfect themselves as much as possible. Because if you don't perfect yourself, a parent who doesn't go to the synagogue, who doesn't study Torah, most likely the children will not go to synagogue and will not study Torah. It's much harder. You do the positive, you study, you learn, you show love for Torah, then your children could go ahead and become the greatest Torah scholars. How did it happen that the children became Torah scholars? The father and mother were not the greatest Torah scholars. The answer is that the father and the mother might have showed love for Torah, and the children took it to a whole different level. We find in my neighborhood on the Lower East Side, you have a lot of children came from homes that the parents, might not have been in, certain things they might not have perfected. The parents were not so strict about certain things, but they were strict, but they had a certain kavod of Torah, honor of Torah, and the children could become great Torah scholars. I'll give you there are many children in the neighborhood that their mothers didn't cover their hair, right? The mothers didn't cover their hair in my neighborhood. Growing up, a lot of mothers did not cover their hair in the modern Orthodox world. But their children, they do cover their hair. Their daughters, their daughter-in-laws. How did it happen? Because those parents had a lot of other quality traits that they were keeping properly. The children saw true values of the parents. The parents were very good people. They were excellent people, but they had this weakness that they didn't cover their hair or whatever their weakness was. But there were so many other positive things about the parents, about the mothers, that the children were able to grow to be willing to accept upon themselves all those mitzvahs which are challenging. Meaning, for a modern woman, Orthodox woman, to cover hair is not easy for her. It's not an easy thing. It's not a new problem. In Europe, 100 years ago, many women stopped covering their hair. It's not a new American problem. It started in Europe that the women stopped covering their hair. So now, for a woman to cover their hair is much more difficult. But with time, and people, the more they grow, they were able to. Eventually, the children are now covering their hair. How do you like that, Yosef Atzadik? What do you say?
Very nice, Rabbi. Thank you. Very nice.
Okay, have a great day, everybody.
You too, Rabbi. Have a good day. And Mazal Tov again.
Mazel tov. You too. But see, it's not
Oh,
all or nothing.
Rabbi, that was beautiful, Hazak.
Yes, it's not all or nothing. Sometimes there's certain things that people are not yet doing. They're not, for whatever reason, they're not there yet, But
Yeah.
but they're doing everything else great. And you know what? And then the children pick up on the genuineness of the parents, that their dedication to Torah, and they'll take it to hopefully another level. They'll take it to another level. Okay.
Bezrat Hashem.
Have a great day, everybody.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
day,
Rabbi. Have a
Rabbi.
good day.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Yosef.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Powerful. You like that?
We all have a lot